Hi there, this is John Drew here from Elevated Planet. Today I'm exploring a little bit more about Drunvalo Melchizedek, who I've spoken about recently and been uncovering his work. We discovered, as per Sheila Seppi's Walk-ins Cosmology of the Soul, that Drunvalo was in fact a walk-in from back in April 1972, so it transpires.
Over the years, I went through a trial and error process to find out who the right people were that I could trust sharing this part of myself with. As more synchronicities led me to more secure allies, I started getting certain clues in my dreams and during visionary experiences. There was one particular message that I kept hearing over and over. The name was Drunvalo Melchizedek. I actually knew his daughter, Aja. One night during a gathering at a friend's house, she asked me if I could drive her home to drop her dog off. While driving back, I realized that it might be the only opportunity we would have to speak in private, so I started to confide in her. Aja, I need to talk to your dad. It's extremely important, and I'm pretty sure he's the only person that can actually help me. At the time, I didn't really know much about his work. I had stumbled upon his work in passing many years before my experience and saw some videos about him working with the tribes down in South America, but I didn't really explore or know the extent of his work. I had no clue that he wrote The Ancient Secret of the Flower of Life. Aja was assuming that I had a New Age celebrity crush on her dad, which she later admitted was a challenge in many of her relationships, and that I was just trying to get a hold of him through her. She candidly deflected, saying, "So he is just kind of, traveling and teaching. Can I take a message?" So I paused to consider that I might not get a chance to talk to him, so I started to tell her about what happened. At the end of the story, she says, "Oh, you're a walk-in, just like my dad. He had a near-death experience, and when he went on the other side, he spoke with a council of light beings. The council's message was that Earth had become compromised by dark forces trying to seize control of our dimension that had bent all the planetary laws in place to the point of nearly breaking them. The council can't directly intervene, but in special cases, certain souls volunteer to incarnate or lattice, connect, and integrate with existing vessels to carry out certain rescue missions."
So just to give you a little bit of the background on this, this is actually coming from Hawkins' Cosmology of the Soul by Sheila Seppi, which I interviewed Sheila probably at least a year and a half ago, maybe a little bit longer. And it was a fascinating story. I would recommend this book to anybody. It really opens your eyes to what this journey through life is all about, what the nature of consciousness is all about. And I was always interested in learning a little bit more about this. And I've discovered in this book, where Drunvalo goes into more detail about what actually happened. He was leading several groups around the world. These pilgrimages were involved in moving the planet forward for the new 13,000-year cycle. Anyway, with this having sparked my curiosity, I've been reading the first couple of his books, and I've got several more to get through as well. And there's no doubt about it, Drunvalo's here for a very special purpose, and he is not just an ordinary human being. Not that any of us are ordinary, right? We're all so much more than we've been encouraged to believe. And this is part of what Elevated Planet is doing, is just elevating the consciousness of those who are within our community, helping us to appreciate exactly who we are. We're all creators. We're all creator beings. And yet we've effectively been disenfranchised by the way that we've been programmed through life. So it's a kind of an opportunity right now to undo that programming, to unlearn what we have learned and start afresh, because this is a new era. This new 13,000-year cycle is bringing us to a heart-based unity consciousness. And over the past 13,000 years, quite deliberately, we have been misaligned from that, believing ourselves to be completely separate. So now we are coming back together. And this is going to bring us enormous joy, enormous strength, and it's going to bring us enormous wisdom because we will be able to tap into something so much bigger. So I thought I would read to you the passage from this book. You can draw your own conclusions, and definitely it's recommended. This is a section which is called The Egyptian Point of View, where he'd been speaking to the group that he was traveling with which was a global group of about 60 people who'd come together from around the world to work with indigenous people in different countries to pull together certain ritual and ceremonies that are vital for taking planet Earth forward. My involvement in these ceremonies stems from the fact that I came in from beyond the stars, from a world of no stars and planets, through Melchizedek consciousness. This consciousness is formless in an original state. It's one of many aspects of one consciousness. It came here at this particular time because of the massive transformation that is about to take place in our universe. That's what Melchizedeks do. We are always involved when there are dimensional changes that are beyond the capabilities of the people involved to solve. I came in through a place called the Crab Nebula, which is behind the middle star of the belt of Orion, and from there I traveled to the Pleiades. I took a Pleiadian body, and I lived there for about 15 Earth years in order to prepare for coming to Earth. From there I went to the star Sirius, specifically Sirius B, the third planet out, and spent a much shorter period of time there. I then went to the planet Venus for a short visit, and then to Earth. I arrived on Earth in 1840 in the fourth dimension. I am just a baby here. My present lifetime is my second lifetime over on Earth, whereas most of you have been on Earth for thousands of years. When I arrived on Earth, I was instructed to meet with the Ascended Masters, but there was no one on the fourth dimension. I moved up to the fifth and then to the sixth, where I found all of them but 3 who were on the seventh dimension. I was greeted by the ancient Egyptians, who introduced me to the rest of the Ascended Masters on the sixth dimension. One of them was Thoth, the scribe who wrote down the histories of the ancient Egyptian world. Thoth had been alive for 52,000 years on Earth, and he's still here today. Much like Saint Germain, who lives with the Ascended Masters on the sixth dimension, Thoth often recreates his body and returns to the third dimension to help us in a human way. Like Saint Germain, Thoth goes back and forth between our world and their world. Shortly after I walked into my present body in 1972, Thoth and I met, and I began a long spiritual training, which took 12 years or more. At one point, when I was finished with that training, I was told by my angelic guides that I had to leave Egypt's influence and go into the Yucatan, because the Maya held information that was important for the world as we make this transformation. The Egyptians only held part of the knowledge, and the Maya held the other part. There are a few other tribes that are involved in this, going all the way from the Native Americans in the United States and Canada as far south as the Incas in Peru and the Waitaha in New Zealand. There are 3 areas of Earth that hold the primary energies for the unity consciousness grid. In other words, there is a male, female, and child aspect, positive, negative, and neutral to this grid. The male aspect was manifested in Egypt, and it ran up the Nile, and it was all laid out in straight lines. The neutral or child aspect was located in Tibet, and the pyramids were made with crystals that created invisible structures. But the female aspect was manifested in North and South America and laid out in spirals, and the center of this female network, according to the Egyptians, was located in Uxmal in Mexico. The reason we were going to Mexico and Tikal in Guatemala was to balance the female part of the unity consciousness grid that holds humanity's new blueprint of consciousness. The world had become so male that the grid was not functioning properly, and without bringing the female in to instill balance, the entire grid would fail to function. In other words, we would not be able to ascend. There was a tiny, atom-sized place in Uxmal, an ancient Mayan city in the Yucatan, where a spiral began to come out of the earth. That spiral was connected to the center of the earth, and it evolved and expanded from Uxmal as it went to Labna, from Labna to Kabul. From Kabul, the spiral kept getting wider, as it moved to Chichen Itza. It got wider still as it went to Talim. From Talim, the spiral continued on to Belize, and then to Cajunli. And from Cajunlic, it spiraled round to Palenque until it reached Tikal in Guatemala. The sites that the spiral visited are equal to the human chakras. Uxmal was the base chakra, Labna was the sexual chakra, and Kabal was the willpower chakra. Chichen Itza was the heart, Talim was the throat, Cajunlic was the third eye, and Palenque was the pineal gland in the center of the head, connected to the crown. From the crown chakra was a connection to the 13th chakra, which resides one hand length above the head. It was represented by Tikal in Guatemala. This chakra was the completion of the set of chakras that ran through the body. But it was also the beginning of another set of chakras that we will use after we ascend. Tikal was, from the Egyptian point of view, one of the most important places in the world. Tikal is connected to another set of 8 temples or pyramids moving in the opposite direction, counterclockwise, relative to Mexico. Then there's another set as you go further down into Honduras and El Salvador and Nicaragua. The energy keeps moving with spirals and temples that keep shifting in opposite direction each time they complete an octave. They finally enter down into Peru, where the spiral changes energy and ends at a temple called Chavan. It was the spiritual center of the ancient Inca Empire.